Understand that consciousness is the divine presence, meaning that it is divine, but it is present in all things. Now, when we think about consciousness, we are really talking about consciousness from your point of view, but that doesn't mean that it takes away from the fact that consciousness is in fact in everything. When we think about God and our understandings and how we were brought up and what we were taught about God, whether it be from a religious point of view or a spiritual point of view, we all understand and accept and agree that God is everywhere and in everything. So as we get into really dissecting and breaking down consciousness, I want you to continue to carry that perspective and lens as we dive deeper into what consciousness is from a metaphysical or spiritual point of view. So as we get into consciousness and understanding that, in fact, your consciousness is God, your consciousness is the divine, I want you to recognize that God can be seen as an intellect that is above all things. It can be seen as the intellect that has created all things. And when we go into the idea of looking at God as a creator, then we recognize that all that has been created is an expression of God, an expression of that divinity. And so coming back to how this pertains to you on your journey, you have to recognize that you being created by God is proof that you are an expression of God. And because you have a consciousness that is unique and different from all other beings, entities, and things of the universe, that has the ability to be self-aware, right? To observe your own thoughts, emotions, and feelings, you are in fact a special expression of this divinity that we call God, this divinity that I call grand consciousness. Your consciousness is in fact an individualized expression of that grand consciousness. Your consciousness is an expression of God. It is an extension of God, not just a piece of God that is separate from God. It is an extension from God, of God, that allows you to see and recognize that you are one with that. And so as you live out your life, you live out your experiences and the things that you are continuously creating, I want you to really understand that you are able to do so because of your connection with God, with this grand consciousness, with this divine intellect that has created and is orchestrating this whole thing. But recognizing that you are not separate from it, and this means you are also orchestrating this divine and amazing orchestra of music and harmony. All right. And you are doing so by really aligning the different layers and aspects of yourself with what you know to be truth. Ultimately, recognizing when you are aligned with your own consciousness, right? The divine, the core, the purest part of yourself, when you are acknowledging what that is and you are acknowledging what it is guiding you to do, you can control your will, right? Your free will, your ability to do whatever it is that you want, but also recognizing that consciousness is leading you to doing what it is that you're meant to do. So though you have the ability to not do it, you have the ability to follow your ego, right? The false self, in doing what you were programmed to do by way of how you were brought up, what your parents told you to believe and not believe and feel, and, how to think about other people, all the various things that comes with being a human being in a society. Though you can follow by those things, there is a part of you that is to the core, the part of you that is really connected with that divine, right, spirit, with that grand consciousness, with God, that is telling you really what you're meant to do. And so the challenge, the adventure, the journey is really differentiating what is false, what your false self is telling you to do, what your ego self is telling you to do, what you were raised and brought up to do, versus truly what you were meant to do by divine purpose, is to, really figure out which one you're going to pick, or even which variation, which ratio you're going to pick, right? Because there's infinite ratios in paths that you can take along this journey. But the path that will guarantee you true personal fulfillment, happiness, and joy is being led by consciousness, being led by that divinity, because that divinity knows you. That divinity is you. And so as you are allowing yourself to be led by that divinity, you have to acknowledge the other layers of who you are, but recognizing that's not really who you are. Those are just experiences that you had that some people often identify with. And now that you are on this conscious journey, you can recognize that, hey, those things I don't have to identify with, because identifying with those things means suffering. It means pain. It means depression. It means anger. It means frustration, right? It means a life of suffering that we really are not meant, and is not something that we are destined to experience, really. But you have a choice to feel that and experience that. But what I recommend is leaning toward consciousness and being led by that. And so when you're led by that and you are following that, knowing what's on the other side also gives you the perspective of truly appreciating following consciousness, following the truest aspect of who you are. You see, so when you know following consciousness means this, following ego means the opposite, right? The other spectrum, the other side of the spectrum, then it allows you to truly appreciate following your consciousness. This is another reason why the ego is so necessary. This is another reason why we have this entity, this aspect of ourselves that creates suffering and pain when it isn't managed properly. You see, so recognize the power in understanding the contrasts of who you are. When you understand those contrasts, it allows you to appreciate the truest aspect of who you are, which is consciousness, which is the divinity that is coming from grand consciousness, aka God, thus expressing itself through you. Now, you may want to ask the question, well, why are we created? What is really the purpose of being here and even chasing our purpose? Well, it is my understanding that God, we often know as all-knowing. And how is that possible? How can something be all-knowing? Well, it is really a metaphor for us being extensions of God, and all other beings who have existed, will exist. They are all expressions or extensions of this same entity. And so as God seeking out to have these various experiences, thus knowing all things, right, being all knowing, is because it is doing so by way of us, by way of you, by way of me, by way of each individual that is and has been. You see, you are, in fact, how in the experience that is desiring that this entity, this intellect, God, is desiring to experience. This is why you have been created. Okay? You are essentially the experience that God wishes to experience. You see, you are the individual expression. You are the thing by which God is experiencing life, experiencing all that is, by way of your point of view. And thus, choosing to follow your consciousness is really aligning yourself with what it is that God has intended for you, because this is truly what God wants to experience, is the things by which you are driven to do, you are passionate about, you are curious about, you are skilled at, right? The life by which you are truly meant to live is the experience that God truly wishes to experience and have by way of you, because you are an extension of that. Remember, you are not separate from it. You are an extension of it, but you still have the ability to choose not to do it, or the ability to recognize that when you don't do it, okay, this is the suffering and the pain and the things that you will experience if you're not in alignment with your true self. That's the beauty of it. You have the blueprint, you have the guide that is sending you along the journey of fulfilling your purpose, your passions, your talents, and thus feeling that personal fulfillment that we all seek. Or you can choose not to, but that is not in alignment with who you truly are and what you're really meant to do here. So it's important to understand how contrasts play a role, but recognizing that you are, in fact, an expression of God. You are a creator created by the Creator. Your nature is to create that which is aligned with your consciousness. Follow your consciousness. Therefore, you will create the things you're meant to create, and that will produce ultimately the fulfillment, the success, the happiness, the prosperity, the abundance that you truly desire. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, get more information like this, and also get access to this free ebook, The Power Within. Feel free to join me as a conscious creator in my Conscious Creator Circle, which is a exclusive subscription-based membership that allows you to get more detailed techniques and methods that are going to help you to expand your consciousness and truly create the reality that you want and deserve. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.